Here we are again for another 5-minute Bible study on another great day that the Lord's given us. Let's all try to use it as best we can, and a good way to kickstart it is by doing our 5-minute studies. So if you're not doing these every day, why don't you do it? It'd be a good idea. Okay, today, Numbers chapter 8. Who are our main characters? We have Moses. He's the leader of the children of Israel, and God has been communicating many things to him that he then communicates to the Israelites as to how they're supposed to live both in their civic life and in their religious life. We have Aaron. Aaron is the high priest of Israel. He is the brother of Moses, and he's from the tribe of Levi. And then we have the family of the Levites who we've talked about in past chapters. The Levites were broken down into three major families: the Kohathites, the Gershonites, and the Merarites, and they served the Lord at the tabernacle, caring for the holy things. In terms of when these events took place, chapter 8 is similar to chapter 7. We're actually going back in time from the first 6 chapters of the book of Numbers. Not too much back in time, maybe a couple weeks, a month at the most. The chapter discusses the completion of the tabernacle and the dedication of those who would be working in and around the tabernacle, i.e. the Levites. Now we're told that the temple was erected in Exodus chapter 40, about a month before the events of Numbers chapter 1 through 6. So that's not a problem that we're not going in chronological order. The book of Numbers never claims to be in chronological order. And so, just know that we're actually moving backwards a little bit rather than forwards. That can throw you off. And that goes for pretty much all of the Bible. It's not all in chronological order, so don't just assume that. That's why I put the when section in these outlines. The year was approximately 1490 BC. And now hopping over to our map, we are still down at the bottom of the Sinai Peninsula in the wilderness of Sinai at Mount Sinai. That's where the Israelites have been camped for quite a while now, and they will be still for a couple chapters. As we think about breaking this chapter down into sections, our first section, verses 1 through 4, we're going to talk about one of the furnishings, one of the items that was in the tabernacle, in the holy place, the first room of the tabernacle. That's the golden lampstand. So God spoke to Moses, and Moses was supposed to instruct Aaron, his brother, to set up the golden lampstand in the tabernacle. The 7 lamps were supposed to face forward and shine their light in front of the lampstand, and also it would give light to the interior of the tabernacle. We are told that the whole lampstand was made out of hammered gold, and I think it's the book of Exodus that tells us it was made out of pure gold, 1 talent of gold, which was somewhere around like 66 pounds of gold. In verses 5 through 22, then, we're going to talk about the cleansing of the Levites. So God told Moses to cleanse the Levites before they began their special service at the tabernacle. They were to be sprinkled with, quote, water of purification. They were to shave their bodies and then wash themselves and wash their clothing. The Israelites then, the congregation of all of the people, they were supposed to lay their hands on the Levites and then to offer them as a wave offering to the Lord. We talked about wave offerings back in Leviticus. So the Levites in this case were supposed to be offered as a wave offering. Luckily not as a burnt offering, or there wouldn't have been anybody to serve in the tabernacle. Afterwards, two bowls were to be sacrificed. One as a sin offering, and then the other one as a burnt offering, along with a grain offering. And this ceremony was done to separate the Levites for their service to God, and the Levites were supposed to serve the Lord in place of the firstborn of all of the tribes of Israel, which God had said belonged to him because he saved all the firstborn during the 10th and final plague in Egypt. So rather than requiring all of them to serve him, the Levites took their place. The final instruction that we read about in chapter 8 is verses 23 through 26, an age limit for the Levites who served at the tabernacle. So those who qualified to, quote, do duty in the service of the tent of meeting were those between the ages of 25 and 50. At the age of 50, a Levite was required to retire from service. And we'll finish off here with an application, more of an explanation in this case. If you have a really good memory, you'll remember that back in Numbers chapter 4, verse 3, the age limit for the priests, the lower age limit, was set at 30 years old. So why is it that Numbers 8 tells us that the limit was from 25 years old to 50 50 years old. Is this a contradiction? Some people have accused it of being a contradiction. Well, I think it's hard to imagine that the author of Numbers could make such an obvious blunder considering these chapters are so close together. I think it's more likely that the author had different kinds of service in mind when giving these two age ranges. It may have been that those aged 25 to 29 served like a kind of apprenticeship, where they were allowed to perform some of the duties at the tabernacle, but they were not allowed into full service till they were 30 years old. If you want to do more study into this, there's some individuals who know Hebrew who show the difference between the words for the service being rendered in these two different chapters, and there's a distinction there, two different terms that are used, and that kind of backs up this case, but that's for a study that's longer than 5 minutes. But if you're interested in that, you can check that out. But no reason necessarily to believe that this is a contradiction. There's a pretty good and easy way to explain at least one possible solution.